Welcome to episode 35, 34. We're doing so many of these days that I'm losing track of how many episodes we've done. But this is Rail Talk. My name is Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. And it is a St. Patrick's Day miracle. I got the Haiti shirt.
Yay!
In the building. It's very comfortable. Like the Nike Dry Fit is a very nice touch, John. The merch just keeps getting better and better and better. So shout out to you guys.
Nothing's too good for you, Joe Bianca. Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. Joe, I have a question for you. In the spirit of the NCAA tournament coming on, I put together a horse racing Elite 8. Okay, that I want your opinion. Now, this is not premeditated. We haven't talked about this yet. This is going to be your honest opinion. I put together an Elite 8, and I want to know who you think would win in this battle.
Okay.
Going forward. You ready? The first bracket, the East bracket, is Churchill Downs versus Bob Baffert.
I mean, Baffert's going to win in the long run because Churchill's going to have to let him back in, and then he's going to win a bunch of their big races, I'm pretty sure. So we're going with Baffert.
All right, so Baffert gets into the Final Four. The Jockey Club versus Coolmore Farm.
That's a heavyweight battle right there. Clash of the Titans type deal. First of all, I don't even know what the criteria is.
It's whoever. It doesn't matter. It's whoever you think.
Basketball game.
It's whoever you think would win in as far as power goes. Who's got more power?
Well, it would seem Coolmore since they rescinded the 140 mare cap. All right. So we'll say Coolmore.
Coolmore. In the South, it's Kamish Rapoli versus John Stewart.
I got to go with Rapoli just because I don't even know anything about John Stewart, but boy, does he have a way of making himself look like a jerk, even in relation to the commish. Like he's taking that mantle.
All right. And then in the Midwest, it's Heisa versus the auction houses.
I'm hoping that Heisa will rule the roost on that. Nothing against the auction houses because I want them to be actually in cooperation with each other. But I think Heisa has to have the final say on a lot of things that affect auctions. We'll say Heisa. Okay, so that's your Final Four. Now, Baffert against Coolmore, both number one seeds as far as I'm concerned. Coolmore was here before Baffert. They'll be here after Baffert.
Kamish Rapoli versus Heisa. Heisa. Okay. And then the championship game is Coolmore versus Heisa. This is not the way I thought. It's a 1 seed against a 4 seed as far as I'm concerned.
You don't tell me the seeding. You want to go into spreads too?
What do you think? Straight out. Coolmore or Heisa? Who's got more power in our industry?
I think right now it's definitely Coolmore.
Okay. Well, Coolmore in your bracket, Coolmore's the champion. I can't argue with really any of the ones that you picked. And it was a great amount of thought process, a lot more than I would have given it, Joe Bianca. So I give you a tip of the cap on that one. So Joe Bianca predicts that Coolmore has the most power out of our entire industry. And you know what? I can't really argue with him.
That was quite the setup, honestly. That was a minefield you had me walking through right there, but we got through it. Have fun with your March Madness bracket.
Just so you know, DJ Stable was my bracket buster. I had them as a 6 seed, and they lost immediately to Parks.
Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton. The March digital sale closed last Tuesday. 66 horses sold for over $2 million. Catalog had horses of racing age, breeding stock, and yearlings. And Law Professor, 6-year-old horse of racing age, sold for $230 to top that digital sale, consigned by friends of the show and sponsors of the show, TaylorMade. So some nice synergy there. He's a nice horse. Like, I get that he's 6 years old, so you think like he's probably not going to have that many racing seasons left. But he ran second to Life is Good. He's a graded stakes winner. He's a speedy horse who can go a routed ground. I've seen him go 9 furlongs easily. So I think $230, all things considered, was a pretty good price for him. Like I said, 66 horses sold, average of over $30,000. So this is the wave of the future, dude. Like the Fasig-Tipton digital sale is coming up. The April digital sale, I should say. Bidding opens on Thursday, April 4th, and closes the following Tuesday, April 9th. You can still get entries in up until March 27th. So lots of action coming. If you want to, if you need more info, you can call Leaf Aaron at 859-255-1555 to nominate. You can email him at laaron@Fasig-Tipton.com. So that can all be done online. And then, of course, after that, we've got the May Fasig Mid-Atlantic sale in May, right after the Preakness. So West Point will be down there shopping, I'm sure. And yeah, in the meantime, if you want some of these turnkey horses, the Fasig-Tipton digital website and the digital sales are the way to go. Like I said, this is the future of racing auctions, and Fasig, of course, is at the forefront. All right, this is like a little bit old news, but we didn't have a new show last week, so I just wanted to touch on the tote malfunction that we had during, mainly affecting Tampa Bay Downs, but affected a bunch of other tracks across the country: Gulfstream, Santa Anita, Aqueduct, I believe. If you didn't see, basically after the second to last stakes race at Tampa, there was a tote delay where they couldn't post the official mutual results from that race. And then they started walking around the horses for the Tampa Bay Derby for a long time, hoping that the tote board would come back on and they'd be able to run the race. They were able to run the race, but not with wagering. It was a non-wagering event, pretty much a complete disaster by any sense of the word. And this is the kind of thing that would never be acceptable in any other sport. Like, if FanDuel goes down for a minute, then they send out an email apologizing, they give people credits, and everybody freaks out and they get it back up as quickly as possible. You're going to be shocked to learn that didn't happen with racing. They they basically took all night to figure it out and to get everything back up and running. No apology to the bettors that I saw. Maybe there was one somewhere along the way, but certainly was not at the top of any of these press releases. No wagering credits. I haven't seen anything pop into my account for that. And I saw a lot of finger pointing, in terms of accepting the blame for this. And I don't know. I'm not an expert in the back end infrastructure type of deals that go on to process and pay out people's bets in racing. But I saw Roberts Communications basically being like, I'm tired of everybody blaming Roberts, and Amtote says they weren't down, and obviously the tracks were not at fault. And I think that's definitely true. I think the tracks, especially Tampa Bay Downs, were kind of left in the lurch here, and I feel bad for Tampa, who has a great card, and obviously that was their marquee race of the meet, and people were not able to bet on it, so that cost them a bunch of money. But it's just like I said, it's not necessarily the malfunction itself, as disastrous as that was. It was the lack of communication, the lack of updates, the lack of accountability, and the lack of willingness to make it right for the bettors. Like, that to me is the really unacceptable part of it. And this is a betting public that already is losing trust, because they've seen these late odds drops from the CAW wagers. And you can say until the cows come home that they're not pass posting, they're not betting after the races go off. When you see a horse pop out to the lead and went from 8-1 to 4-1 in the first flash, it makes people understandably suspicious. And now you have a situation where you had millions of people's of dollars in limbo somewhere in cyberspace, and we have to trust that you got the payouts right in the long run and got the right money to the right people. I don't blame anybody who has a conspiracy. Usually I'm not a conspiracy guy, but anybody who has any conspiracy theories about this and the way it happened, I'm not going to talk you off of it, because this is an industry that does not engender trust in the betting public, and they're just banking on people's degeneracy that they'll come back the next day and bet hand over fist again. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes you might piss off the wrong person and they're not going to come back and bet your sport ever again. And we cannot afford to lose any bettors with bullshit like this. Moving on. We do have some racing this weekend, and I will be firing away probably as the degeneracy returns. But Fairgrounds has a big card. The Louisiana Derby card is coming up this weekend. Before we get to that, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to West Point Thoroughbreds stalwart Jackson Traveler, who won the Whitmore Stakes, a grade 3 on Saturday. And he is just one of the coolest horses in racing. He's the kind of horse that I would tip my hat to, even if I didn't work for West Point, but obviously I'm doubly attached to him. He's won stakes races in 5 straight seasons now. He's won stakes as a 2-year-old, 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-old. He cost $140,000 as an OBS April purchase. This is what everybody wants in a racehorse. It was a terrific race. He won by just the skin of his nose. And so shout out to Jackson and all of his partners, because what a ride he's taken us all on. Moving forward to this weekend, we got the Louisiana Derby card at Fairgrounds, all graded stakes, all grade 2, late pick 4, big fields. You know, we're going to talk to Andrew Stewart a little bit later from Arion Pedigrees. We were talking about the field size. That's been a big problem in American racing. Not a problem on Saturday at Fairgrounds. Tons to look forward to. I think right now you have also the Oaks, the Kentucky Oaks favorite, Tarifa, is going to run in the Fairgrounds Oaks after a really nice win in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes. John, just give me your take on the Louisiana Derby card, because there's a lot to dig into.
There's definitely a lot to like. Joe, just to jump on the bandwagon, on the Jackson Traveler bandwagon, I didn't realize till we started talking about it, the horse has run 28 times and ran at 12 different racetracks. 12 different racetracks. I didn't even know there were 12 different racetracks in existence anymore. And right. The horse has basically set hoof on every single one of them. $900,000 in earnings, and just a stalwart. I mean, not even, you would say like a grinder or a compiler. I don't think so. I mean, he actually has won graded stake races, like you said, in a number of different years, which is really, really cool. Anyway, tip of the cap to Jackson and what he's done for you guys. The Fairgrounds card is really exciting to me, not only because we have Webslinger running in the grade 2 Muñez Memorial, number 3 in your program, number 1 in your heart, little Webby, and but then you go on to the Oaks and Louisiana Derby, and it is just a great card. That's being put together at the Fairgrounds. I'm genuinely excited to see a couple of these preps, for the Kentucky Oaks and for the Kentucky Derby. We have Kenny McPeek coming on to talk. He's got 2 horses in each of those 2 races, which is really, really a cool thing to have. And you mentioned, Tarifa, who's arguably going to be the favorite for the Kentucky Oaks. But I like a couple of horses here in the Louisiana Derby that I think are a little bit off the beaten path that we haven't spoken about before. Honor Marie is an honor code, a modestly purchased honor code, $40,000. And, broke his maiden in an auction maiden race because he was eligible for it. And just every single race has improved since his, going through his 2-year-old year. The Risen Star, he was a dead closer, broke, 11th out of 12 and made a huge run in the slop on a speed favoring racetrack. I think Honor Marie, if he gets a fast track, that he's going to be a horse to look at. And how about Hall of Fame, who, everyone was talking about for the Risen Star and kind of put in a clunker. I'm going to chalk it up to the fact that it was in the slop, and more so than anything else, maybe he bounced because he was eligible to bounce. He ran a 66 buyer, jumped up to a 94 when he won by double digits, at the Fairgrounds. And then after, just 4 weeks, they ran him right back into the Risen Star, which again, I think he bounced more than anything else. I think those 2 horses are horses that we should be talking about. In addition to Catching Freedom, who literally has increased and improved every single race that he's run so far.
I think it's an interesting race in that there's not a ton of speed on paper, but the main speed is drawn way outside in Track Phantom, who just got beat a half length by Sierra Leone in the Risen Star. So I don't know, like he's to me the horse to beat, but I'm curious of whether some other jockeys are going to be kind of aggressive to try to get him caught wide going on that first turn, although it is a long stretch run before they hit the first turn. So he seems to hold the cards from a pace standpoint. Obviously, $1 million race, you would think people are going to know that. The jockeys are going to know that going into the race and are going to adjust their tactics accordingly. But I agree. I think Hall of Fame, if he gets lost a little bit from a betting standpoint, he would be the one I would be most interested in. I think he's going to get the right kind of trip. A couple other news items we want to touch on. We lost Improbable in the past week. Obviously a star on the racetrack, multiple grade 1 winner. He did it over multiple seasons as well, was at WinStar, passed away, untimely death in the past week or so. And he was a horse that I thought a lot of his, and I'm no expert, but I thought a lot of his horses at the 2-year-old sale. And there were a couple that we were in on that we were the underbidder on. And I was really hoping we would get one, because there's something about his horses. They're really well built. They looked great. They breezed fast. They did a lot of right things. So he died Saturday night at Root and Riddle. He was being treated for the muscle disorder ataxia, which is obviously a very serious thing, can affect their coordination. It can eventually have neurological symptoms as well. He said, quoting Elliot Walden here, it said, he was sent to Roonville Saturday morning to determine the exact cause of the ataxia. He was responding well to treatment, but he went to lie down in his stall and fell awkwardly. As a result, he broke his right tibia, which could not be repaired. So that's devastating. He was only 8 years old, seemingly had his whole life, certainly had his whole life ahead of him, but also a really promising stallion career ahead of him as well. John, what did you think? Like, I think he's got a couple of crops still to come. He might turn out to be a little bit of a sneaky sire, and it's unfortunate we only got a couple crops out of him.
Well, I think a lot of people were anticipating his foals to run as 2-year-olds. With City Zip being a sprinter and being a blazing fast horse, and they anticipated that the Improbables were going to do well the under tax shows, subsequently sell well, and show up as 2-year-olds. So I think everyone is in great excitement for to see his foals even before this passing. Joe, you mentioned before that Elliot Walden, WinStar president, was quoted as saying that the horse died due to complications of ataxia, which again is a neurological issue. And it's also the same thing that befell Arrogate years ago. They both had issues with ataxia, and they both neurologically had issues with standing and being able to hold their own weight. And ultimately, that was their downfall. For each one of them, that had to be put down. There are others that have been put down due to ataxia. It's not quite as a higher percentage as you would think it would be, based on the fact that you had a couple of 2 high-profile horses like Arrogate and now Improbable, having to be put down. But it is a concern. I know years ago there was a big issue with EPM, which again is a neurological issue, and there's medications for it, and there's things you can do for it, and that's a little bit more widely spread because it comes from the feces of animals like raccoons and things like that. That may get into the water or the food supply of a horse. But this was unfortunate. That this young, stout kind of horse went down with a neurological issue. And again, it was the same one as Arrogate. So, you can make your own assumptions and connections as you see fit.
Yeah. I mean, just, and he wasn't like one of these horses that ran 2-3 times and got whisked off the stud. So I'm hoping that there will be a little bit of soundness to his horses in addition to speed, but time will tell. One other thing to touch on, a little bit lighter than that, just to wrap up this segment. I don't know if you've seen the Twitter war, the budding Twitter war. Well, it's been interesting though, because Jon Stewart. So if you haven't seen Jon Stewart, who was a new entrant into the industry, spent a ton of money last year at the sales. He runs under Resolute Racing. Is kind of taking some shots at Mike Rapoli, the commissioner of horse racing, and it's. I kind of side with Rapoli on this, actually, because Jon Stewart is running his mouth off for a guy who seemingly has very little experience in the industry. Not to say that he can't have an opinion and can't have better ways for us maybe to do some things, but I kind of side with Mike when he's like, I'll give you a tour of the winner's circle, which I've been to 1,000 times, and you don't even have any horses racing just yet. But John, what did you make of this? Was this just
I'm on Team Stewart, actually. I looked at it and I thought that when Jon Stewart had a couple of things to say, and Mike again went low, when people go high, he goes low, and was basically like, oh, you own a farm? Here's my farm. And he showed a picture of Manhattan, and let's not forget, look, it's not like Mike has been in the business for decades and decades. So for him to say, oh, you're a newbie, cracked me up, because it's like, well, wait a second, you weren't even in the horse business 10 years ago. So let's
except that he did buy, like he started with claimers.
Right.
So he has seen the industry from the bottom to the top.
I'm not doubting that.
He didn't come in out of nowhere and spend $1 bajillion and say he knows, what to do about racing.
Right. And again, I think if you read John's tweets, he's not saying I know how to fix racing. I think that he's trying to promote racing, and he's also saying the same things that we were saying a couple of weeks ago, which is, hey, if you're trying to act like if you want to be a leader, act like a leader. Don't say things, and then when people want to join in the conversation and come up with ideas, you immediately say, well, what do you know? I'm richer than you and I'm smarter than you. It's like I think that's why I'm siding with Jon Stewart. Now, that being said, there's a horrible or great tweet, depending on how you look at it, of him being Jon Stewart standing next to his $800,000 vehicle, and letting Goodnight Olive sniff the leather of his $800,000 vehicle. And to me, that churns my stomach, because it's like, really, you have to show me how rich you are. You can't. So again, I don't think either one of them I would necessarily say are beyond reproach or anything like that. I think they both have decent points to talk about, but yeah, it's just a rich guy picking on another rich guy, and quite frankly, I can sit on the sidelines and enjoy it. And because I don't have skin in the game. Although you did pick Team Rapoli over Team Stewart in your bracket as well.
Maybe. Well, first of all, that picture, that was like something like that MC Hammer would have done back in the day when he had horses. You know what I mean? I could picture that photo shoot 1,000%. So maybe Jon Stewart is the reincarnation of MC Hammer in racing.
Can't touch this.
No, can't touch it at all. But seriously, like if they both wanted to come on the show and have a pissing contest here on Rail Talk, we'll bring our umbrellas. Come on, come do it. We'd love to have you. Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade Sales. I mentioned that TaylorMade consigned the topper of the March digital sale at Fasig-Tipton Law Professor. So shout out to you guys, always at the top of every list at every sale, it seems. But TaylorMade is not just a sales agent. I'm like, you're not just. I got to tell them about themselves. TaylorMade is not just a sales agency. They also have a farm. They have a stallion farm. They have lots of broodmares and babies that they take care of. They're a full service business in this industry. So John, I believe that you have some baby pictures of the new foals at TaylorMade.
And Joe,
take it away.
On that farm, they had a colt, E-I-E-I-O. This is a Justify out of our mare Earth Strike that was born on February 6th. So he's a couple of weeks old there, frolicking out in the beautiful green, lush fields of TaylorMade Farm. And mama and baby are doing phenomenally well. We are not going to name this one. There will be no naming contest because he is destined to be a summer sale horse, probably at the summer Fasig sale with TaylorMade. And mommy Earthstrike was just bred to Go Sapper, and we're awaiting days for her pregnancy, test to come back. So, kudos to TaylorMade for keeping me involved all the time with what's going on with our mares and our newborns. And they send us photos and videos. Really, they send them almost weekly. They'll send them more often if you'd like. But as somebody that's outside of the bluegrass area, it is a welcome email whenever I get to see our mares and our foals enjoying the bright sunshine. And this is really the advertisement and what we should be promoting about the industry is just these horses enjoying their best lives out in the beautiful Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Oh, so we're so thrilled to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. Always an interesting guy, always has a lot of knowledge and insight on all avenues of the industry. Oh, and by the way, he's a very successful trainer who's just recently won his 2000th race. Kenny McPeek, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We're so thrilled to have you. I wanted to start with that. You recently picked up your 2000th win, and I saw an interesting story in the racing forum where you talked about how this was like an accidental career for you. Like you didn't initially set out to be a horse trainer. Can you just, I don't know, because I'm not sure if our audience has read that story. Can you just talk about what you initially wanted to do and then how you ended up following this path?
Well, there's a long version and a short version, I suppose. I've been around the thoroughbred industry since I was a boy. My dad bought into a horse when I was young, but my grandfather would take me to Keeneland when I was in first, second grade. I started going to Keeneland. Then I learned how to read Pedigree when I was probably 10 or 11. And like I said, my dad went in a few partnerships and then got my first job. Once I got my driver's license, I got a job on a horse farm. And I did my first horse deal when I was 19. I was a sophomore in college, and we flipped some brood mares Made about $75,000 in 2 weeks. So it's actually a really funny story, but it'll take up half your show. And then my mother was the taskmaster.
Okay.
You are going to college and you will graduate. And it was one of those things like, son, over my dead body, you are going to college and you will graduate, which I did. I pushed through school real fast. I actually got in and out in 3.5 years. And then the day after my last class, I went to work on the racetrack and got a hot walking job the next morning. And so tinkered around on the racetrack for probably a month and a half, 2 months. Wasn't making enough money to make ends meet. For that matter, my mother was pretty put out that I would, get a degree in accounting and finance and go to work on the racetrack. But anyway, so I kind of migrated back into trying to utilize my degree. I had gotten job offers on Wall Street. I'd actually lived in New York or Manhattan for a summer in '83. And spent a lot of time working, interviewing, and going to the races. So that was an interesting summer. But after I tried to use my degree, there weren't any jobs then. I mean, it was 18% interest rates back in the 80s. And it was, and I probably didn't have like what I would call a classic. I was a good student, but I wasn't a great student. And so the racetrack kind of always pulled me in. But one day, my father was a home builder, and he had 18% interest rates, pretty hard to sell a house. And he was having some serious financial problems and asked me to come help take care of some horses he had 4 horses. Both his trainers had fired him because he couldn't pay them. And he said, can you help me out for a couple of weeks till I can figure out what to do with these horses? And I said, well, I'd actually found a job, and I was making decent money. And so I'd come early in the morning and help him. We worked together. I'd clean the stall. He'd walk. We had to borrow forks, rakes. We didn't have anything in the first few days. Then subsequently, eventually we had to borrow saddles to get them on because the horses were going stir crazy walking every day. So I started sending them to the track. And then couple months go by. Now the old man quit showing up, and it's me, myself. He can't pay me. And so the deal was pretty simple. Win or you don't get paid. And so there was a trainer next to us who we ran the horses in his name a couple of races. And then my dad says he was going to go get his trainer's license. I said, okay, great. So the morning of the trainer's test, he decides that he doesn't think he's going to pass because I'm the one that's been spending all the time in the barn. And I said, well, if you're not going to go, I'm going to go. So I went down to the Kentucky Racing Commission and told them it was a misspelling. It was supposed to be Ken, not Ron, and took the test and won a race within a month. And the feeling of the rush of winning a race is just so amazing. It was a maiden 10 claimer at River Downs. I mean, the purse was like $4,100. But I was immediately hooked. And then I won, I think, 10 out of my first 50 starters. And people started calling me saying, hey, will you take a couple for me? And I had average horses that were mostly rejects. And I was learning on the go, pretty much self-taught. I would ask questions of trainers that I respected and have a lot of people that I can say contributed to my knowledge, but I never had what I'd call a cookie cutter way of doing things. It was always an open mind. And then I started getting a little bit better horses. And then I convinced a guy to let me go buy them, which that was, I bought a nice mare named Warside who won stakes up in Monmouth and Keeneland. And she was the first crop of Lord of War. So anyway, here I am. I'm still doing it 2,000 wins later.
That's an amazing story. And Kenny, one of the things that I've always been super impressed by you is that when you go to sales, you mentioned going to sales and buying horses. When you go to sales, you're not the one who's signing the ticket for the most expensive horses that are sold. You're winning grade 1 races with horses that are modestly priced. Without giving away the secret sauce, what goes into your thought process when you go to a sale? Because it seems like time and time again, you're buying horses for 50, 60, 70,000 and they're showing up in grade 1 races.
Well, like the stock market, you buy when the stock's down, not when it's up. And so I don't get enamored with, sires and mares that have produced multiple stakes winners. I get enamored with the physical. So when Roy Monroe was the first client that ever gave me a budget to go to an auction, and we talked about it, and he says, well, I'm going to give you $6,000. That was the budget, $6,000. And so it was July or August. And I said, well, there's no sense in going to Keeneland July, and there's no sense in going to Fasig July, and there's no sense in going to Keeneland September. We're going to wait for Fasig October, and we're going to pluck something out of there. And I think, maybe I can get something for $6,000. I don't know. So the process of the sale is what I call a squeeze them. I still do it the same way as I did when I bought for Roy. And the math was pretty simple. I looked at every single horse myself. I love looking at horses. So then what I do is that I squeeze the package down I start making short lists, and then I get them down and down and down. And then I decide, where's the value?
Right.
Which is the best looking horse that I've seen that's going to be modestly priced. And so Roy, I think we had 10 horses on the final list. 8 of them, the stud fee was more than the $6,000. And then there were 2 horses on the list, and I called it down to these 2 fillies. The first one went for $12,000, and we got outbid. And the second one brought $8,500. And that was the horse that kind of kicked me off my first Keeneland Stakes win. And so, and then Roy, a couple years later, gave me a bigger budget, and I bought him Tahana Run with a $20,000 budget. Right. And then Tahana Run, of course, Derby, second in the Derby. And I don't do it any different today than when I started. And I still have that base of clients that if I go in and I see a horse that I think's on the physical, looks like a runner, then I grab it and we'll worry about who owns it later. Some cases, like in Curlin's case, I bought him on spec. I offered that horse to 6 people, and they turned him down until finally somebody took him, and they tried to give him back because they didn't like his ankle, because he had an unusual vet exam when he was a yearling. But that's just one of many examples. And I bought a horse for $25 out of the OBS sale, a Minnesota bred. And you know what? She looked like Swiss Skydiver when she walked up and back. I mean, same package, same figure. If she's half as good, I'm all right, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even Swiss Skydiver was a $35,000.
Yeah, 35.
Yeah.
But I believe that you buy when the market's down. You buy when stallions or I guess you could say when people are down on a stallion. That's usually when I'm looking hardest. When a mare's thrown 7 or 8 foals and she hadn't had a good horse yet, and she's in book 5, that doesn't mean she can't throw a grade 1 winner. And so, and then beyond that, I don't get a huge budget. I've had some people that have a lot of money, but I don't typically, throw it at it.
Right.
The Greens haven't called me yet.
Not yet. Not yet. It's coming. It's coming, though, boss.
I think if you sign up for the Green Group's tax preparation, that'll give you the in on that.
One last thing. I'm a student of stakes races. I love looking at the horses in the paddock for the stakes. I think that you see common denominators. A good horse looks like has a certain type. And I love looking at whether it's a turf race or a sprint race or, dirt long, whatever it might be. I'm always looking at every horse and who they buy and who they out of and how are they made. And I like doing that math.
One horse that you didn't buy at auction, it was homebred, but also has a pretty modest pedigree, being Golden Sense out of a Colonel John mare, is Mystic Dan. And he's your top Derby contender at the moment. I thought his race in the Southwest was crazy impressive. You hardly ever see horses skip over a wet track like that. He was just zooming down the stretch. Do you think it was something that he just happened to like the slop a lot better than the other horses, or was he sitting on a breakout race and that just happened to be a sloppy track that day? What was your take on him having that big step forward?
No, sloppy doesn't have anything to do with it. I mean, he's just fast. I bought his mother for that group for $50,000, and then she ran out about 300 the hard way. It wasn't a stakes filly, but solid. And then I did the mating, And I told him, I said, you need to breed this mare to something a little faster than her. And so we did the mating, and we foaled him at Magdalena in Lexington. So that's a bit of a kick.
Mm.
I mean, to put the thing together, and then look, I mean, this horse has got a serious chance to really do some amazing stuff.
And what's the deal with him? Like, I've seen he's worked out a bunch of times since the Southwest. What's the plan to get him to the Derby?
Well, we wanted to keep him fresh for the spring. I mean, we've got we need to run well in the Arkansas Derby. The ownership group is all from Hot Springs and Arkansas area, so that was a no-brainer. And we didn't want to run back quickly in the Rebel. That was back in 3 weeks, and he is a smaller type horse. And the one time that I ran him back quick, kind of backfired on me. So we decided not to dance too many dances with him, and we just basically been keeping a fresh horse for the next go round. And like I said, skipping the Rebel was a pretty easy decision, but then that mean we had 7 weeks in between races after that. But we're excited. I mean, he's locked and loaded. He threw a 59 and change breeze yesterday or day before yesterday, and then he's got one little maintenance breeze, and we'll send him up to Oakland.
Now, is that one of the reasons why Common Defense is running at the fairgrounds? Is because you didn't want to run them against each other, or was it the extra distance that the Louisiana Derby offers, and you thought that was going to be better for Common Defense? Extra
distance. I think Common Defense is begging for all the ground in the world. I mean, and certainly didn't want to run them against each other. But he will run. He's a run all day type, and he's tactical. He can lay right off the pace if necessary. So that horse we're very excited about too. And he's a $9,000 RNA. I mean, he's that's amazing. You don't know where they're coming from,
and it looks like you don't know where they're coming from. And that was a homebred, right? Of Tony's.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, big, pretty horse. Not the most correct horse ever. He's a little bit left and right, up and down. I mean, he's his front end, but he's got a beautiful shoulder, hip, great mind on him, and he very well could punch a big ticket in that race this weekend.
No doubt. Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit because you're always an outspoken guy with a lot of really smart, reasoned opinions, I think, on the industry issues. I'm sure you read the Rusty Arnold letter about Heisa recently, basically saying that, Heisa is being a little too heavy-handed in terms of potential contamination and not really taking the horseman's experience and advice into account, despite there being a horseman's advisory group as part of the Heisa protocol. What's your feeling? Like, we're almost a year into this thing now. I guess about 8 months, 9 months into the medication program, at least. Where are you at? Do you feel like you have been heard as a horseman, or do you think that you guys need to be more involved?
Well, I think we definitely need to be more involved. I think Rusty's spot on. I mean, Rusty doesn't come out and say a whole lot typically. He usually keeps it close to the vest, but he's obviously upset about the way he was treated there. And I agree with him. I mean, I don't and I have told executives with Heisa, it's real simple for me. Get these rules so they're aligned everywhere. I mean, the problem, whether it's an entry rule or a shoeing rule or, medication rules, and there's still a lot of disconnect. Like, for example, Equibase doesn't communicate with Encompass. That doesn't communicate with the computers at racetracks. So if you make an entry and you had another track that the entries might have changed, or the ownership may have changed, that needs to be in one bucket. That needs to be streamlined. That's just one silly one. But I could give you a list of them. And unfortunately, they're not allowing guys like myself or Rusty or others to get really, actually, I think I saw recently they posted that you could apply to be on some sort of horseman committee. Right. And I probably should do that. Like, I don't have anything else to do right now. I've got so much spare time, but anyway, they do need somebody that's well knowledgeable about all the little idiosyncrasies we deal with. And I think there's still a lot of work to do, a lot. And I think Heisa's still got their work cut out for them. And, whether they take Horseman's advice, well, I think they are, and they will. I don't think they're completely opposed to our opinions. But I do think that when they first set it up, they have people on the committee that know absolutely nothing. That's scary.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Those people are calling me, going, "What do I do, Kenny? How do I answer this?" And I've got one guy. I'll leave his name out of it, but he brings me all the time saying, "I don't know how to answer this. What should we do?" Well,
right. Well, then you know who should be on the board. But you're right. The application period is open now, and I'm sure that they would love to have somebody with your insight and acumen and just common sense to be on the advisory board, because that's really what they're looking to do. Is my understanding is they're trying to get smart people together, owners, trainers, jockeys, breeders alike, gamblers, to try to get everyone's insight on what's going on. And I'm sure you'd be a welcome addition for that. One of the other topics that we talk a lot about is, the good and bad of a super trainer. And I think it could be argued that you could be considered in that list, or maybe just a notch below, as it were, as far as the number of horses that you have. What's your feeling on super trainers? Should there be a limit as far as the number of horses that a trainer gets, or is that just nonsense and we have to let the system work itself out?
Well, I started as a small trainer. I mean, nobody gave me anything, and now I have just a great base of clients. And does that make me a super trainer? I don't know. I don't know that term. I work every day to help a lot of people make decisions, whether it's buying decisions, racing decisions, breeding decisions. Do you limit somebody like myself to be able to help more people? I tend to try to, what I'd call cull from the bottom. If a horse doesn't have a lot of talent or doesn't fit our program, then I'm in a fortunate position to be able to say, hey, this one's not going to work for us, or we work to sell that horse. But I don't see how you can stop somebody from doing business. Sometimes it's embarrassing when you got so many good horses. I mean, sometimes I wonder, God, how did I get so many? I have like 29 stake horses in the barn right now. It's like, but they're horses that I either bought or, we've helped develop, obviously developed, and we've got a great team of guys. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming having so many. Sometimes I wish I only had 40. But then there are people who are constantly calling saying, hey, will you help me? Will you help me? They've got some wonderful people, whether they're high-end clients or they're middle or lower-end clients. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have done it the right way and have built it a very natural way. I just think sometimes it becomes a self-perpetuating thing at the very highest levels, where people only see certain faces in the winner's circle for the big races. They assume I got to go to those trainers if I'm going to win any big races. And that's not how it is. I saw you give an interview recently about the accessibility of racing data, racing video, racing replays. You have your own company, Horse Races Now, that does streaming and betting. And can you just tell us a little bit about that and what kind of market inefficiencies you're attempting to address with that app?
Well, we don't do betting, and we don't have any streaming. We can't afford the streaming, and the betting they won't allow us to do. Although we did,
except for that, I got it right.
Yeah, and we so let me tell you how this evolved. So I have a friend of mine, and he is what I would call a classic average Joe Bill Bob. He's just a country boy and simple guy, and he comes to me and he says, "Man, I wish I knew when your horses were running. I never know when your horses are running." And so we were having a cold beer one night watching television, and we were watching a show came on called Planet of the Apps. And this is back in 2010. And at the time, and they did this, it was on a news channel, and they did this an analysis of how that smartphones were going to take over the market. And that at the time, there was only 7% of Americans had smartphones. And that within the next 2 years, it was going to be 35%, but within 5 to 7 years, it would be 100%. So people were going to need apps. And I didn't know what an app was. I thought, well, that's interesting. So I purchased an iPhone, and one of the first apps I did was the ESPN app. So the ESPN app has notifications for your favorite teams. It has start of the game, halftime, significant plays, whatever, and then obviously the final. And so you just turn on the alerts on the ESPN app. But I'm scrolling through the ESPN app and I'm going through sports, and all the sports that are listed in the app, in the ESPN app, and horse racing's not in there. And I'm like, well, that's BS. We don't have any presence in the sports app. Okay. So I called around and I asked some important people in the business, is anybody making an app for horse racing? I had one of them said, Kenny, people don't want apps. I said, I think they're going to want apps. I mean, this guy was probably one of the best paid executives in horse racing. And he laughed at me. I said, well, look, I think people are going to want to have apps, and I think we need a horse racing app. And I asked Churchill, and I asked Stronach Group, and I asked like all these entities. Nobody was making a horse racing app. So I did a little research, and who can help me build this? Because I don't care. I guess a no fear attitude. I believe anything you decide to do in life, you can do. You just have to work your tail off at it. You have to stay focused, and it will come to you. There's a great book called Magic of Believing. Well, So I put a team together to build it, and it wasn't easy. It was hard. And today, that thing's had over 1 million downloads in 217 countries. And and I've lost a fortune on it. It's the worst investment. I've lost over $5 million on that thing. Fortunately, my day job helps pay for things. But I have an email database of over 600,000 people that I own. And so what do we do with it? I believe that the sport needs to open the video. I believe we need to make it so easy for fans to watch that they can't stand it. At one point in time, we had 129 racetracks that had video on it. The fans loved it. I mean, we were streaming probably too much because the company that was sourcing us the streaming was saying, you realize more people are watching horse racing on, we call it Horses Now. We've shortened the name, than any entity in the world. I said, isn't that good? And they're like, no, we're going to readdress, all your streaming. To stay in business, we'd love to be able to allow that database to take wagers. They're hungry to. We do surveys that say that 75% of our users have an ADW account. We would like to be able to take bets, but we can't get in the market because we don't have we're not a brick and mortar, and so there's problematic. And then we've gone to ads, but it's kind of a passion project for me, in that if I shut it down, and I've contemplated it, there would be a lot of people that would be very disappointed, because there are a lot of people, I think, that utilize it.
So when your career is done and you're sitting back on the porch with a cold one, are you going to want to know that you had a Derby winner, that you were in the Hall of Fame, or that you were able to successfully sell the app to ESPN?
I don't think about any of that. Just keep getting up and working. I don't know when I would stop. I mean, I've said I was going to stop at 70, 72. I'm 61. I know I look 40. I mean, but
yeah, well, no question. Our audience wants to know if you're on a dating app. That's really what they want to know.
No. Happy wife, happy life.
I know.
I have the most wonderful wife ever. But I don't know. I mean, Derby winner would be wonderful, but I think a lot of stuff's got to fall in place. Hall of Fame be wonderful, but that's out of my control. I don't worry about stuff out of my control. The app, if I turn off all the coding, it'll still make about $7,000 or $8,000 a month. But writing code is another deal. Right. So I don't know. We're just putting one foot in front of the other every day, and don't really worry about what I've got to deal with. And certainly, family's a priority. I got a beautiful daughter, 2 beautiful daughters, and good setup. Between where we go Saratoga in the summer. We're Keeneland, Churchill, spring and fall, and right now I'm in New Orleans. So who's got it better than us? Nobody.
That's right. That's right.
That's for damn sure. That house is beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
Right there on Bourbon Street. That's awesome. John, you got one more?
So Kenny, I just want to reel us back into a specific race. Let's talk about the Oaks, the Fairground Oaks that you have going on this weekend with VVS Dream and Midsummer March. They were both yearling purchases that you secured for more money than what you usually spend on average. But now they're both showing up and they're in the 1 and 2 path of the Fairground Oaks. Can you give us an idea of when you handicap that race, what you're thinking about your chances?
Well, both fillies are nice fillies. Midsummer March has got a bit to prove, and she's doing so well. We decided to throw her into the deep end. Vivi's Dream has showed amazing talent as a 2-year-old, but she got sick on me at Saratoga last summer, and then we got her through that, and she managed to win the Pocahontas in the fall, but second in the Alcibiades, but she's faltered a little bit since then. She's hooked 2 muddy racetracks and she didn't run a step over either one of them. But she's still working, she'll work bullets and she's very, very talented, but she's certainly, deserves to be in there as a 2-time stakes winner, graded winner. And then Midsummer March, we're going to learn about. I've been second in the Kentucky Oaks 3 times. So that's been a bit frustrating, but we've got some other ones that are going to run in the Fantasy, and then I've got 1 or 2 going to run in the Bourbonette at Turfway, and I've got one for the Ashland as well. Ashland. So we've got good group of fillies as well as colts.
Loaded for bear for all the big races, as we expect you to be. Kenny, thanks so much for the time, man. Keep up the great work. And I just looked up the horses now. You got over 500,000 downloads on Google Play. So you're doing something right. Maybe there's a little cross promotion to be had here. Kenny, appreciate the time, brother. Continued success.
Probably double that on iPhone. I mean, people like it. I mean, it's a useful product. I hope people that are listening enjoy it and try it. And we're trying to get it so it's on financial footing, although right now it's not, but we're keeping at it.
Yep. Well, when you look up entrepreneur in the dictionary, your face is right there between the horses and the apps and the real estate, and God, it's incredible.
Thanks.
Very, very impressive, Kenny. Thanks for the time, man.
Anytime.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. One reason that they're #1, no other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. Len owns over 200 horses with DJ Stable, has won over 2,500 races. They have over 800 clients in the horse business because they make them money and save them taxes. To wit, got 100% of their corporate returns out by March 15th. So Len Green and the Green Group, not only will they save you money, but they'll do it in a timely fashion as well to get you prepared for tax day. We're less than a month away from it right now. There still is a special listener or offers for listeners of Rail Talk. You can get a complimentary and confidential half-hour consultation where Len guarantees he'll get you value. Call him at 732-634-5100. Do it quickly. As I said, tax day is coming around. And also wanted to shout out Len, who's going to be honored with the New York Racetrack Chaplaincy's Mary Lou Whitney Award for his ongoing humanitarian support of the New York backstretch community. So cheers all around to Len. He'll be presented the award at the group's 17th annual fundraising brunch. Shout out to Eleanor and Umberto and all the people at the Racetrack Chaplaincy. They do a great job taking care of the people on the backstretch. And it's always a fun event. It'll be August 14th at the Saratoga National Golf Course, obviously in Saratoga Springs. So much well-deserved honor for Len. I know Len and Lois have always supported the backstretch community. Don't want a lot of pub, don't want a lot of attention for it, but we're going to honor them anyway. August 14th at the fundraiser brunch for the New York Racetrack Chaplaincy. So appreciate everything that Len and the Green family do for the people who make this sport work behind the scenes. So it's been a minute since we've had this segment. We want to have a regular segment going forward with our buddy, the bloodstock manager of Arion Pedigrees. Andrew Stewart is back for Pedigree Corner. Hey, what's going on, Andrew?
Good to be here, guys. Early in the morning.
Is it good to be here?
I'm wide awake.
Is it good to be here checking in at 5 a.m. New Zealand time?
Yeah, it's still pretty dark outside.
It's all right. You're a trooper. We definitely appreciate you. And eventually Patty will figure out how time zones work. But we wanted you to come on mainly because we haven't spoken to you in a while, but also in particular to talk about the big Tappet colt that we bought. I keep saying we as if it were my investment, but DJ Stable, West Point Thoroughbreds, and a couple other partners went in on last week at OBS March, the $1.2 million son of Tappet, half to a graded stakes winner, really nice, super pedigree that you wouldn't normally see at a 2-year-old sale, only really came about because of the untimely passing of Bob Lothenbach. But we thought, obviously it's a nice pedigree on first glance, but there's got to be a lot more down below the first dam or two that really adds to the appeal of him. So, Andrew, just take us through it. What are some of the things that jump out to you about the now named Sandman's pedigree?
Yeah, well, as you say, it's not your normal North American pedigree. I think starting at the top, of course, who doesn't love Tappet? He's a champion sire three times. 150 odd stakes winners, graded stakes winners, probably being a little bit overshadowed now by some of the new boys. But just doing a superb job. And, the colts are out of a mare by Distorted Humor. And, I love Distorted Humor. He's becoming a great broodmare sire. He's the broodmare sire of, 21 grade or group 1 winners at the moment. I think he's the broodmare sire of 3 Pegasus Cup winners. There's a horse bred in Australia who's raced in Hong Kong, a horse called Golden 60, who's been the Hong Kong Horse of the Year 3 times and was world champion older miler last year. So, all out of Distorted Humor mares. That cross, it's a fairly new cross. There hasn't been a lot of progeny by Tappet out of Distorted Humor mares, but one horse that really stands out is Constitution, who was a multiple grade 1 winner and now at stud and doing a wonderful job there. So that's the top of the pedigree. Interestingly, the second dam music room by Unbridled Song started her breeding career in Australia. She was imported into Australia as a 3-year-old, didn't race, and then was sold. Had a foal, an unnamed foal, and then was sold and went back to North America. So she sort of had a bit of a roundabout route to where she is now. Of course, she's the grand dam of Moon Over Miami and She Can't Sing, the Bernardini, that's the half to Sandman. But I think further down the pedigree is where it gets really, really interesting. The third dam is by Sadler's Wells. The great European influence from the Northern Dancer line. She left 2 grade 1 winners in Music Note, who won 5 grade 1 races, Musical Chimes. Fourth dam is It's All in the Air. It was a fantastic mare. She won 17 races, I think 6 at grade 1 status. And it's just a family full of not only North American, but European. I think there's grade 1 winners in 7 countries, from the fourth dam up, basically. So, yeah, it's a great international pedigree by a wonderful sire. I was looking at the 5 2-year-olds that made $1 million or more. And, I think on pedigree, and I know 2-year-olds you don't buy on pedigree, it's probably the last thing you look at. But on pedigree, if a horse like him can win a grade 1 race, he's a perfect horse to stand at start.
Yep, no question about it. And Andrew, one of the tools that we used in deciding, if we were going to buy this horse or not, Sandman, was we went ahead and went on Arion.co.nz and pulled up the 7x7 pedigree grid. And I was really amazed at just how much inbreeding is going on. Obviously, it starts with Unbridled and Mr. Prospector, but you go 7 generations back and you start seeing Nijinsky and Buckpasser and Prince Quillo. You would think that with those kind of inbreeding, with those stallions and mares that are crossed in the family, that the horse would be able to go 2 turns and even further. What does your analysis show when you look at a pedigree like this? Is he going to be a miler, a mile and a quarter? What do you think his sweet spot's going to be in racing?
Oh, definitely. I think he's certainly got the pedigree to run a distance. I think the major problem you have in North America is there just aren't enough races over 2 turns. I was doing a bit of analysis last night, and there are only 221. There are 31,500 races run in North America last year. There was only 220 run at 10 furlongs or further. So
wow. Wow.
Yeah, and so you got your major race is a 10 furlong race. The Belmonts run at 12 furlongs, but they don't seem to be the races for those sort of horses. So he would probably be a perfect European classic type horse, because their racing program is more centered around races from a mile upwards, and on pedigree, yeah, he would just eat up the ground, I would think.
Well, maybe we'll, we had the king of sending American horses to Europe, Kenny McPeek, on the show a little earlier. So maybe we need a little bit of that influence in this partnership group. You never know. He could be a globetrotter at some point down the line. You mentioned the lack of distance races, just in general, like the decreasing foal crop and the decreasing number of races we have in America seems to be a major problem. But I'm interested to get a guy like you to chime in on our, the state of our industry in America, because we're so wrapped up in it and so, kind of myopic sometimes in this business. Seeing it from the 30,000 foot view from across the world, like what are some of the things, Andrew, that jump out to you that American racing needs to fix?
Well, look, I'm no expert, as you say. I sort of observe from afar, but you've been having a discussion around the size of stallion books. I'm not overly concerned about stallions standing, covering, large books of mares. I think there's been a narrowing of the genetic base of the thoroughbred for hundreds of years, for a long time, and you're probably looking at it a selfish way, but in 200 years' time, are we going to have an industry? What's going to happen? I won't be here. So I don't think it's the huge thing. I think people go in with their eyes open. If you're going to send a mare to Golden Lad, was it, that served 250 mares? If you're going to send a mare there, you're going to know he's going to serve a big book, or you should ask the question. And so you go in with your eyes open. My more of a concern to me is the drop off that these stallions seem to have in their third and fourth years for no apparent reason other than there's a new crop of young horses coming through. And I'm not a breeder, so I can't speak from experience, but it just sort of amazes me a little bit that sort of thing happens. So that's one where I really I don't think capping stallion books will really have any impact at all on the genetic makeup of the horse. Gotcha. It's all about supply and demand, and that sort of leads into super trainers as well. And there's a couple of big super trainers in Australia. Chris Waller, who's a Kiwi, who's been very successful in Sydney for the last 20 years, and a younger guy called Kieran Maher, who's based in Melbourne. And between them, they've probably got 1,000 horses in work. But they seem to make it work. Chris Waller will run 5 or 6 horses under different ownerships in the same race. So we don't seem to have the same issue around filling races, because trainers seem to think, well, the horse is ready to race. The owners have been paying the bills. So if there are 3 or 4 stablemates in the same race, so be it. If we run 1, 2, 3, 4, it's good.
Great.
I mean, I don't know if you watch any of the Cheltenham races. The great Cheltenham Jumps Carnival last week was on in the UK, and I think the leading jumps trainer, Willie Mullins from Ireland, I think he took a team of about 50 over there. And there were 3 or 4 races where he ran 1, 2, 3, 4, but there was exciting racing. They were all trying. So I've got no issue again with the super trainers, as long as they're entering their horses and filling races. And I know that is an issue for you guys, that there does seem to be a bit of a problem with them filling races. And I think, just to segue again, that sort of leads into my third point around race distances. And I know you are a bit restricted because your tracks are all of a very similar shape. So you are a restricted affair, but 60% of races run last year were either run at 6 furlongs or between 8 and 8.5 furlongs. Mm-hmm. So to me, as a handicapper, I would prefer to be, and I'm used to watching a card of races where there are races from 1,000 meters to 2,400 meters.
Right.
That's just, I guess, something that I'm used to. I mean, it may be different for you guys. You're used to that sort of thing, the cards that have turned up, but there just doesn't seem to be a lot of variation. And that was my earlier point about horses, on the classic trail and further on. Your big handicap races have basically just have disappeared because there aren't races carded for horses to prepare for those big races. And so therefore, the races can't fill and the grade ones become grade twos and grade threes. And, some of those big handicaps are we've seen it a little bit here. Our 2 mile races, which were, the big handicaps here, have all turned into group 2 and group 3 races because we're a little bit the same. There's just not enough races being carded to prepare them. But we're probably not in as bad a situation as you guys are.
I was going to say, I think we only run 2 2-mile races in the entire calendar in the U.S.
Yeah.
So we're not in danger of overrunning the 2-mile races. But yeah, I mean, what's the field size like in Australia and New Zealand? Like, that's the biggest thing for me. Is we got 7.2 or something in America, and that's like considered a jump.
Yeah, I think it's around just under 11.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, a Saturday race card, which is, the main day of racing, will normally you'll see 12 or more per race. Yeah. And you're a handicapper, Joe, and so that's what you want to bet on, isn't it? You want to bet on a big field where the odds are good. We could now talk about, the CAWs that seem to be causing huge issues in North America there. And what's surprising is that some of them are owned by the tracks. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
So really they're shafting their own customers. I mean, what's with that?
Yeah. No, you preaching to the choir here. And it's like, I meant to bring this up the last time we talked about the CAWs. Like, if you're going to have that incestuous relationship between the tracks and the gaming companies and the CAW wagering platforms, like, the least you could do is give your regular bettors some better rebates. Because, like, I get maybe 1% to 2% back on Naira bets, and that's nothing. Like, that's absolutely nothing. Like, I could bet $10,000 in a month and get like $140 back. Like, that's gone in an instant if you bet like a pick 4 or a pick 3 or something. Like, what is the deal with having not just having those relationships, but also not treating your regular bettors better? Like, tell us about how it is in your neck of the woods, like in terms of ADWs, in terms of rebates and rewards and all that stuff. Do they treat the players better?
I think they do. I mean, I'm a regular bettor, but I'm not a big bettor. But I bet mainly fixed odds, and fixed odds is a big thing down here. The CAWs would have no impact on my betting, and I'm not sure of the numbers. I don't know how many people bet fixed odds against tote odds. But my betting myself, and I bet most days, I would probably be 90% fixed odds, because I know when I put my bet on what I'm going to get back. And even, as I say, I don't bet big numbers, so I'm not concerned if the tote odds are a little bit better than the fixed odds. I know what I'm going to get back. And that's the big thing for me. And I think that would be I see one state has started fixed odds betting in North America. I don't understand why it's not a bigger thing. Our betting agency in New Zealand also runs sports betting. So we've got the advantage that the money bet on sports, or by punters who bet on sports, they're using the racing's facility, and so racing is linked in there, and we get a bit of a bit of a flow on effect. I know it's different over your way, and so it may not work that way over there. But yeah, fixed odds is a big thing here.
Yep. I would love to go somewhere where they treat me better. Treat me better as a bettor. That would be fantastic.
Well, so we're the lifeblood of the industry, aren't we? The bettor. The industry is all about the horse, but without the bettor, there's nothing, is there?
No, absolutely not. And without your pedigree insights, we really can't. We don't know much about the horses that we're buying. So, Andrew, thank you for coming on and explaining the Sandman pedigree for us. We'll have you back on soon. We'll talk a little bit about some of the Derby contenders, because that's like, to me, that's where we're looking for pedigree insights the most, is trying to figure out these horses. Can they go 10 furlongs? Can they go 12 furlongs? So there's no better place to figure that out than Arion Pedigrees. Arion.co.nz is the website. Andrew, thank you for the insights, brother.
Not a problem at all. And I think it was Tessio who said, all horses can run fast, just some of them run faster for longer. And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
They all can get the distance, just a matter of how fast.
Andrew, I think Tessio also said, hey, Patty, there's something called a computer where you could figure out time zones. I think it was Tessio who coined that.
I think it was too. He was a very wise Italian man.
He was very, very ahead of his time. Thanks for coming on so early, buddy. We appreciate it.
Not a problem. Great to see you guys.
Thank you so much.
You're awesome.
All right. So that's going to do it for episode 30-something of Rail Talk. Eventually, I'll get back to the drawing board and figure out what number this is. But it's been a great episode. Thank you to Kenny McPeek for stopping by. Thank you to our buddy, the bloodstock manager of Arion Pedigrees, Andrew Stewart, for coming through. Go to arion.co.nz if you want to do a little pedigree research leading into the Triple Crown season. Thanks to John Green. Thanks to our producer, Patty Wolf. And our associate producers, Anthony LaRocca, Aaliyah LaRocca, Nathan Wilkinson, Julia Agresta. We'll see you next week back here on Rail Talk.